Boys and girls, top of the week to you. This is Alex and Steve coming to you from the Lion's Den of Leadership podcast, where us entrepreneurs come to play, ask difficult questions, uncover, sort of undress ourselves and, show all our failures. And that's figuratively speaking, of course, we're not going to address. But we want to understand what makes entrepreneurs tick, what are some of the mistakes all of us are making. And what we do is we bring guests who start, run, and excel at their own businesses, where we have a chance to interview these folks and learn all together. So Steve Rozenberg is my co-host. Steve, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm actually in your home state here. I'm in the SoCal visiting family, about to go dirt bike riding for the holiday weekend. So I'm enjoying the nice weather. I've got a little bit of fires down here in LA, but I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. It's been a couple weeks. We've had, 2 weeks since we haven't done a show?
It's been 2 weeks. Yeah, I miss it very much. And this added value of having an hour a week to talk to top-level entrepreneurs and really poke into the game of business ownership and employees and culture and profitability and marketing and tactics and whatnot is just, I've missed that. So we're getting back in it. I'm Alex Osenenko. I run a company called 4.5.com. We do marketing for property management companies. Have done it for the last 7 years. And our guest today is Dave Spooner. Dave, how are you?
I'm good, Alex. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic, man. So you run a shop called, is it Innago?
Innago.
Clue us in. Give us a little bit of walk us in softly, so to speak, for about 30 to 50 seconds. What do you guys do and how do you do it?
Yeah, Innago is tenant management software for small to mid-sized landlords. And we very deliberately say tenant management software rather than property management software because we believe at the core of all the challenges that smaller landlords face is the relationship and the management of those tenants. So we create tools to facilitate that, make it a little smoother, and make it easier for them to run their business.
That's very succinct, Steve. Can you introduce your business like that, Steve?
I don't know if I could do it that well. He did a pretty good job. Good job. I already have a couple questions for you on that, but no, I don't think I could. I very simply, what's the way to put it? I own and operate a property management company. Is that a simple terms of what I do, Alex? Is that an easy way to say it?
It kind of says what you do, but you don't say who you do it for. What Dave did here in the last 15 seconds, he just kind of summed it all up and put a nice bow on it.
Yeah, well, I would say if I was getting my game on and I had my game face on, I would say what I do is I make entrepreneurs' dreams come true by understanding the true value of wealth and getting them on the path to freedom through real estate. Bam!
That is very good, but now you missed what you actually do. So you said you do it. Now you gotta marry them. But I don't want to put you on the spot. And you feel free to put me on the spot. But I actually want to talk about Dave's company more than our own. So, I'm interested in the founding story. This seems to be like, let me preface this. I worked for both AppFolio and Propertyware. Back in the day, there was nothing. Literally, there was some few CDs, like Tenant Pro. I think there was a couple other ones. Mm-hmm. Buy a CD.
Yeah, totally.
You run your management company from a CD in the local server in the closet. And so AppFolio Propertyware came up. And this changed the game. And since then, there were literally hundreds startups. I get requests very often to talk to people about, giving them advice on how to position their companies, how to market their companies, and so on. So, Dave, tell us the founding story. How'd you stumble into this? How long ago? Where are you going?
Yeah, you're spot on, Alex, in that there's hundreds out there, and there have been hundreds in the past 10, 15 years. A big part of the reason that's the case is because nobody seems to have it quite right, especially for this small to mid-sized demographic. So I was involved in real estate tech starting back in 2013. My partner, Yasser Drabu, and I worked on a project that was trying to connect and better facilitate student rentals. And a big component of that was a listing site and allowing tenants to find a place to live. And ultimately, what we learned and what we determined is that student housing landlords with their 99% national occupancy simply don't care about better facilitating their tenants finding a place to live. They find them anyway. It doesn't matter. But in that process and learning from those landlords and interacting with those landlords, we found that many of them, and most student housing landlords are small to mid-sized independent landlords, we found that many of them lacked these tools, and that the software that was out there, the features that they had available to them were insufficient or clunky or difficult to use or too expensive or a number of other issues that they had with it. So we said, all right, nobody's cracked this nut. Maybe we can take a swing at it and see what comes up. And we're pretty proud of what Innago has turned into.
Can I ask you a question, Dave?
Yeah.
What is it? How big is your target market?
Like how many landlords? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's hard to get these numbers exact. And I've actually heard, I think Alex on a couple shows back threw out there's 55 million total units in the US, and only 35% are professionally managed. The numbers we've seen are 85% of the units are managed by landlords with less than 100 units. So any way you crack it, it's around 35 million units out in the US that are managed by these small to mid-sized independent landlords. So it's quite a large group of landlords.
And how do you position yourself to get in front of these people better than software X?
Yeah, this is really the key. And I think this is what's changed in the past 10 years, big time. The reason that the Appfolios of the world, the Yardis of the world have traditionally targeted larger landlords. Appfolio has a minimum portfolio size of 50 units, and really they're looking for landlords with 200 units. So they want bigger landlords. The reason they have these thresholds is because for them to move the needle, they need these larger sales, right? They need these 200,000 unit landlords because it's hard to make a sale. It's hard to call somebody up and convince them to jump onto enterprise level software. In the last 10 years, the way search engine marketing and the way that people interact with products, the way that those things have changed has really enabled smaller customers and smaller businesses to find solutions that work for them. So the number one thing that we do is try to be a resource for these people, to try to provide them information online that they can use to improve their business. And we primarily do that in the form of our blog. So we try to write really, really good, high quality content for these small to mid-sized landlords. And they end up finding us. They reach out to us. After reading a few articles, they say, hey, these Innago guys know what they're talking about. I wonder what their software is all about. They learn a little bit more. We start interacting, and before you know it, they're giving us a shot and hopefully liking it. So
content marketing is the game. Long tail is
absolutely
the biggest acquisition channel, or one of the larger acquisition channels for you. I want to say, so did you, I just want to clarify this, your journey here. Did you have a failed product, then you pivoted? Is that what I'm hearing? You tried to address these student landlords and they...
Totally separate projects. Worked on, one of the guys on that team and I split off and did something different.
Gotcha. Is that company still going?
No, that company's no longer going. It was in a similar space. So we were able to borrow a lot of what we had learned from that project into the new project.
Gotcha. When you call project, is it a company or project?
It was a company. It was called College Annex. A failed company I like to call a project. Doesn't feel quite as successful.
So
go ahead, Steve.
I'm sorry. I just want to keep touching back on this. So you provide value through content, right? Now I want to get your opinion because I have the other show, the Landlord Survival Show, and that deals with the individual landlords, people like me when I was coming up, learning to buy properties and that sort of thing. Now I feel, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, that a lot of landlords, the reason they fail is not because they have a better software or a worse software or a widget. I think the reason a lot of these landlords fail, with 1 out of 3 get into some form of lawsuit or litigation every year, I think the reason that they fail is they don't have the proper structure. They don't have the right goals. They're not set up correctly. So their business fails, which ultimately means that your business is jeopardized because they basically cancel their membership. So are you able to give them when you say resources, are you giving them resources of like how to become better business people and how to set goals and structure and that kind of thing? Or are you just giving them content things to like mentally think about?
We try to run the gamut. We try to give them a lot of different information, both on the actual day-to-day management side and the business management side, growing a business.
Okay.
I think you're absolutely right, though. It is about structure, and it is about putting some parameters in place and really sticking to those. So we try to make a lot of our content drive home certain aspects of that, right? Certain things that you have to keep in mind when setting up and structuring a lease agreement, ways to keep your tenants, ways to initially onboard your tenants, right? If you establish certain ground rules out front, it's going to pay off in the long run, right? Articles like that seem to drive a lot more clicks than others.
That makes sense.
What I find on your blog, as you were just explaining, I'm on your website and went through. There's some really good stuff here and very clean. I like that you don't put a date on the article where you don't date yourself. That's pretty clever. But a couple of pieces of advice I'd tell you right off the bat from a marketing standpoint. Number one, backing videos into these articles will give you just such a lift from a YouTube search, as well as just overall SEO lift by time on site improvements. And so what I would do is I would just simply record a not stupid, but a short 2-minute video that just like this, you can just get up there and talk about whatever you just wrote, right? 6 tips. What I'm looking at, 6 tips for spring cleaning your rental property. Well, you know what? There's definitely a video that can go along here, and it doesn't need to have any kind of production value, to be honest with you. It's just some nice background and all that, and you just explain that stuff. And then later you can add production value once you begin to get traction on YouTube. And then one other thing is, this is the latest thing on the SEO that we've uncovered, is the articles I see you have here are probably about 700 words or so. You want to shoot for depth now and try to do 1,500 plus. Well, not plus, but 1,500 is where that seems to be the magic yardstick now for Google. Where if you do quality, if you do video plus 1,500 words, that will do much better than a 700-word article with just pictures, which is what you have. That's just my advice. But overall, the blog looks really clean, and I think the content is good. How often do you guys do that? How often do you publish?
Yeah, so we typically publish once a week. I do have a quick question for you. With your blog post, do you guys have any organizational, structural, I guess what I'm asking is, do you know the clustering model, and have you guys implemented that? Doing a pillar article and...
So I think this is something that my developer would probably answer better than me. But I go from a perspective of user experience. You want to have a very powerful search on top and few featured articles. I don't know if you can navigate. We do it for customers as well. So if you jump on, let's go even, if you go to 4.5.com, let's make it just illustrative here. And we go to free resources blog.
Can you share your screen, Alex?
Can I share my screen? I don't want to risk this, man. I'm gonna try.
Breaking new ground on the podcast here.
The reason is, I don't know. I've never done it on a podcast. I don't know. Most people, some people, I guess, are watching, but a lot of people will be listening as well. But if you are, go to 4.5.com. Cover free resources. Go to property management blog, and you'll see. Categorization. Now, I don't see the search anymore. I think they're still working on it. The big deal was the search. Right now, it's just categorized kind of like what you have on the side, but it's on top. We'll split them into the ones. I think a better example would be go to one of our customer sites, which is like, let's say, Gordon. Is it gpmsf.com? gpmsf.com. And if you hit owner resources, so gpmsf.com, you hit owner resources, there you go. That's kind of the structure we've been. So we kind of like the cobbler without shoes kind of a thing, right? So we do it we implement these latest things on customer websites, and ours is the last one to take it. But this is sort of the structure of the blog.
Yeah, looks great.
Yeah. That allows people to search. I don't know if that's what you were asking, Dave. I went kind of a little bit of a rant here, but.
Yeah, no problem at all. So, and you guys might know it by a different name, but the clustering model is you create like a pillar article of content that's typically even longer. So it could be 2,500, 3,000 words, and it gives you a survey of the topic as a whole. And then off of that pillar article, you have links to each of your individual articles that cover that subject more in depth.
I got you. Absolutely.
Let's say, for example, like tenant screening, right? So we offer screening services. So we have an article that covers everything you would ever want to know about tenant screening, but from a fairly treetops version. Within that article, we link out to an article that's about, abiding by HUD regulation and making sure that when you're screening, you're not crossing any lines. Okay, that's really specific in the weeds type stuff that doesn't belong in the pillar, but we create this sub article. And it's a way of kind of forming and driving the SEO clicks in the direction that Google can understand better, I suppose. I too am a little limited on this, so you could talk to the technicians and I'm sure they'd know much better. But we're moving towards that model. We're now shifting our blog in that direction. And one of the big things that we've learned from that is, you're absolutely right. It seems like 750 is not enough anymore. You got to go up on pretty much all your articles.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. So I didn't recognize the name and nomenclature, but you're absolutely right. That linking strategy within the content, just producing content. This is for Steve, man. Steve, you got to have some kind of SEO person, content SEO person, look at your stuff, because you have a lot. And I think what it does, it doesn't cluster it as Dave called it. It's sort of like out there in components everywhere. There's no continuity, and Google needs to sort of track all your stuff, sort of network all of your content, and you got to tell Google what's important. So if multiple articles link to that hub article, a lot of times that's what propagates in search, and it's that inbound link, even though it's internal, that inbound link brings up value of that article. So
yeah, I was making notes as you guys were talking.
That's exactly right. Now, again, I'm not a technician here, but Dave, you brought up a very good point. So hopefully our listeners will take something out of it. You don't need to know this stuff. Just make sure that when you do content, spend some time, hire an SEO consultant for a few hours and get a strategy in place. You can do it yourself. It's not complicated. You just need to know what to do. It's just linking stuff, right? It's just not complicated. You just need to know the structure of what needs to be done. So that's a very good point, Dave. Let's go back. I wanted to talk to me about Cozy. I know Cozy is sort of playing in the same space as you are. They're funded by Google Ventures. I've met Cozy guys. They're pretty kind of they're high level entrepreneurs that like have blinders on. They drive. Yeah. They just drive like crazy. What do you think of them, and how do you compare?
Yeah, they've done a great job, and it's a nice product. They actually were just purchased by CoStar. I think it was about a week ago.
Oh, they were? I didn't know that.
Nice,
okay.
Nice little exit. Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Early exit.
So the main difference between us and Cozy is that Cozy is really kind of like you said, they've got blinders on. They're micro focused on small landlords, right? So they want landlords that basically have 4 units or less. Once they go beyond 4 units, it becomes a little bit more challenging to manage through Cozy. That's what we've found both in our own experience and kind of doing our due diligence and researching them, and also in talking to a lot of landlords that have come from Cozy and are working with us. Most landlords don't enter real estate thinking, I'm going to purchase 4 properties and then I'll be done. That's my retirement, right? They want to build a portfolio of real estate. And one of the driving principles of Innago, both internally and externally in our marketing, is that Innago is software that grows with you. So we need to be able to function for a landlord just 4 units, and also function for landlords that are larger, our largest being 700, 750 units. So anywhere in between, Innago is going to work great. Cozy works really, really well for those micro landlords, but if you go beyond that, it does become a little bit more challenging. That's really where we step in.
I'm wondering about that, Akko. Now that you mention it, my mind is now navigating towards there. So what do you know? I'm not familiar with CoStar. Is it one of those large multifamily shops? What do they do? What's CoStar?
I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe they own apartments.com. So if you're familiar, Zillow recently rolled out some rental tools. Have you guys heard about this at all?
I've heard it on some of those Facebook groups, but not vaguely.
They rolled out some fairly limited rental tools, but I think CoStar's Cozy acquisition is a play to compete directly with that. So, you list on apartments.com and then they kind of upsell you into the Cozy platform. I believe that's what they're going for. So
that's fair. And what is your strategy, Dave, for growth? I mean, what are you taking this company? Kind of, what is the vision? Give us maybe a short 1 year, 3 years, and maybe 10 years. Kind of what do you see this company going?
Yeah, The market is quite large. There's a lot of landlords that fall under that small to mid-sized space. So there's really kind of endless room for growth at this stage, and we're looking to capture as much as we can of it. So within a year, we'd like to triple in size in our current landlord count. And then with 5 years, just kind of continue that momentum and grow it bigger and bigger. We will always add features. We will always add new things that a landlord can do in our platform, but we try to do it with a lot of conscientiousness, very carefully. We're not just adding features to add features. I think that's one of the snake bites that a lot of the early software in this space got bit with. And we want to do it very methodically and build a product that is going to continue to be useful for these landlords moving forward.
Dave, let me ask you this. What problem do you guys solve for your clients?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, it's the tenant management side of things, right? And you were talking about it earlier, Steve, when you asked me what type of resource we're trying to be and provide as far as the blog is concerned, but it's true for the software as well. Getting that foundation, getting a some set rules and processes in place is so key for a landlord. The big variable in management is the tenants, right? They're the thing that you can't control. You can, for the most part, control expenses. You can control your investment strategy. You can control a lot of these different pieces, but the tenants you can't really control. So Innago is designed to provide you tools to more or less kind of control that variable, to wrap it up and manage it a little bit more easily. So we provide things like automated late fees, automated reminders, better tenant communication, where you can establish that baseline with your tenants early, get them on good footing with you, and hopefully management is a heck of a lot easier after that.
Do you guys utilize any kind of checklists inside of your software?
Could you elaborate?
Well, it's all about policies and procedures, right? This business is a very methodical, procedural type industry. So
sure.
For us, for my company personally, and we have not found a property management software to do this correct yet.
Yeah.
It's always an afterthought, like an add-on, is to have checklists, because here's one of the challenges is every time you have a pen and you put that pen down, that's a handoff. You
sure.
do something, you have a later date, that's a handoff. Every time there's a handoff, there's a chance for a mistake to happen and a chance to ruin the relationship between landlord and tenant. So the whole idea of a checklist, the concepts of checklists are that it stops the things from killing you. And what I mean by that is, being a pilot and knowing about being trained by Boeing about checklists, you don't do the trivial things. You don't say, okay, you're going to sit down today and you're going to turn on your computer, check, and then you're going to get your pen. That's not a checklist. The checklist is onboard new owner, check. Now, if you don't know what onboard new owner means, onboard new tenant, if you don't know what that means, you click on the checklist. Maybe that takes you to an expanded version in a manual, and then that explains what onboarding a new tenant may mean. Verify this, get this information, get that information. Now in the checklist, you just say check, it's completed. But there may be 13 steps inside of that have to be completed before you check it. So I don't know if you have thought of that. A lot of software companies do not, and I can tell you that is a huge void. So much so that we've created our own for our own company, and we've invested, I'm going to say, close to $100,000 in checklists just to create the structure that we need for our company. Now, we may monetize those and sell them down the road. We're not sure, but this is the thing that keeps standardization, and it keeps all those balls in the air juggling. Now, like you said, if you have 4 properties, not that big of a deal. You get into 50, 60, 70 properties as an owner, and you don't understand the true value of leverage. Now, all of a sudden, you're trying to do everything, and you're probably doing a lot of things wrong, where a checklist could at least keep some of those balls still in the air juggling without dropping them. Now, then there's the other conversation of leverage and leveraging things out and that kind of stuff. But I'm just wondering if you guys have broached into that subject, because, again, a lot of people don't think about it unless they're operating in the field and they're kind of in the heat of battle. But I can tell you from my company, we're a little bigger than your average, but still, if you don't have the checklist, I mean, that's what will kill you. And I don't know if that's something you guys have looked at or not.
No, it's really interesting you bring that up. So one of the big challenges we've been taking on recently is the onboarding process. And the startup wizard is in many ways kind of like a little checklist, right? You go through this process of understanding and learning to use the system and also integrating it into your own processes. And what you bring up that's really interesting is the knowledge center that we talked about before, the blog content and all the different information we're providing these landlords could fairly easily be integrated into the types of checklists you're talking about providing, right? So if somebody's using the system, when we notice certain behavior and we have information or a checklist or whatever it may be, some sort of knowledge center article that we could source for them right there, that could be a really useful way for them to understand their own business's growth and how things are going to change. Because again, like you mentioned, when you go from 20 units to 50 units, it's a totally different business. You're now operating a different business than you were when you first got started. And understanding that growth and understanding that evolution could be really, really useful. So I think that's a good note for me. I'm going to take our.
Well, and I think, what happens is when you start doubling, right? You go from 20 to 40 to maybe 80. What happens is you all of a sudden, I think the biggest challenge that is the paradigm shift that your clients and we have to explain to owners that they have. The paradigm shift is they go from landlord to investor.
Yeah.
And a landlord is the guy who wants to do it all themselves. They want to do everything. It's like the entrepreneur that wants to do everything himself. The investor is the one who has a team of doing things. So all of a sudden it starts becoming a game of leverage and a game of understanding that now you are running a business. And working hard is not necessarily going to equate you being successful. And so you may have some kind of shift that as you could be, in the flying terms, they say taking people to the crash site quicker. You helping people get bigger could be sending them to their doom quicker. If you're not teaching them to educate that they're going to implode, and I know a lot of property management companies that I've worked with, and when I speak, they learn how to market, they learn how to grow, they get all this stuff. All that does is that makes them go out of business quicker because they don't have the infrastructure aligned to make them, be able to sustain the growth. They got, I asked them, could you take on 40 new properties this month? And they're like, I would go out of business. I wouldn't be able to sustain that. And not only do I not have the money to take it. So again, it's one of those things. It's kind of a double-edged sword. And Alex, I don't know how you think about this, but you give them all these tools, but if you don't give them all of the tools and you only give them half of the tools, making them think the illusion that things are getting easier. And there's this whole back end that they never even realize. Because again, you don't know what's coming. Like Alex, you and I, we don't know what's coming until we have a $20 million company. At $5 million company, we don't know what's coming around the corner, right? I mean, we think it's going to get easier, but the reality is everything's going to break. Everything in our company will break between $10 to $20 million in revenue. I know that. And so a lot of times, a lot of these investors, they go, oh, this is easy. I got the software. I got the cool stuff. I'm going to go buy more and more and more. Next thing you know, they're going, wait a second, I don't have any infrastructure. And I think that, that probably rings a harder toll, a bell with me, just because I lived that life. And I realize a lot of these investors, they focus so much on the front end. They don't focus on running it like a business on the back end, which I think a lot of, Alex and I both see a lot of entrepreneurs. They're great operators at being property managers, but they're maybe not the best business owners of actually getting the return out of it. And, one thing I always tell investors is that you own 4 walls and a roof. Us, the property management company, owns the business that's operating inside of that 4 walls and the roof to give you the return you're getting. So whether it's us or it's the self-landlord, they need to realize that there has to be a functioning business model injected inside of that 4 walls and a roof to actually give it the return. And I think that's the illusion a lot of these smaller landlords have, is they think, oh, I'm just going to buy these houses and I'm going to sit on the, passive income and sit on the beach and relax. And, we all know that that's a fairy tale. That's not reality. But at the end of the day, those are all of our clients. They're your clients. They're our clients. It behooves us to educate them and get them educated to make their lives easier, because if their life is easier, they're going to buy more properties, which means they're going to get more assets for us to manage. We're going to use people like Alex to help us grow our company even more. So it's the trickle down effect, but it all starts, I think, in educating that client to become a very successful investor, which it sounds like you're doing. I just don't know to what depth you're doing it at.
Yeah. So so you guys have these internal checklists, which is great. Do you also make those checklists, or do you have separate checklists available to the owners that you do work with to do exactly as you just mentioned?
Well, you got to understand our philosophy behind managing the assets is they're hiring us for a reason so that they don't have to do anything. So
Sure.
we don't want to see them. We don't want to smell them. We don't want to, you know, look, we want to do good customer service. I get all that. But at the end of the day, my properties are managed by my company, right? I would love to say I've had that property for 10 years. I've never heard about it. I've never seen it. I've never smelt it. And I get my check every month. Best company in the world.
Right.
If the other hand, if I said, this company is calling me every day, they're telling me everything that's going on, they're just, I'm done. I'm in over it. They may think that's good customer service. I'm giving this owner all this information, but the reality is they don't want to hear from us. I joke and say we're kind of like the trash men of the real estate industry. They need us, but they don't like us. They don't really want us at the parties, but we're there, you know?
Sure.
And the reality is, you know, it's a great industry to have, but it's all about structure, and it's all about having that, you know, ability. So we do not offer that to our owners because we don't want them involved. We don't even have them involved in the tenant selection process. We do that. But I will say the checklist that we have, we're, you know, I'm in 3 different cities, and we have teams in the US, and we have a lot of outsourcing that we do with teams in Mexico. And those are all utilizing our checklist, and they work great, but they're only as good as the training that you give to that team. So with that, we had to create, or I'm in the middle of creating about 500 internal videos for staff training.
Wow.
So we're doing a video knowledge-based education library. We call it Empire Academy, but it's 500 videos just to be able to train our team members. What do you say with this? How do you handle this situation? What do you this? What do you that? So that it's in a manual, and it's going to be, so when they are hired, and this may be something you look into, when they're hired, they go through InDoc, and they have to take all these videos. They've got to watch them, certain ones for their department, but they also have to test out of them, and they've got to quiz out of them. They have to get a certain rating on that.
Sure.
Then they have to have recurrent training. Now, what we're doing on the second phase of that is we're going to do a knowledge-based education for our clients, for our tenants, for our owners, and for our vendors. So we're going to educate them all on, you know, knowledge-based questions and this and that. And then we may even take it a step further, and we may make the Empire Academy that if owners certify and they take all of our courses, maybe they get a point off of a management fee, or they get something special. So because what we're doing is we're creating good owners so that they become good clients, so that they buy more property. So, but it's like it starts at the basic, and then you got to really ramp it out there. And I think a lot of people, you know, just collecting management fees is easy. Anyone can do that. Being a management company, it's not rocket science. But getting that owner to educate themselves, to want to buy more properties, and to be on your team, and becoming a raving fan, and they're referring people to you, and they're buying more properties, you know, all of a sudden, I mean, look, Alex, we all know, right? The acquisition cost of a recurring transaction is much better than us having to go out and fish for more business. So if you can make your clients want to buy more properties, and you can get them to keep growing their portfolio through success, because we all know that who do they hang around with? Probably like-minded people. Right. And they probably want to buy properties because people like to brag. I mean, look, I've given Alex so many referrals because, you know, he's a great guy. I like his last name, even if I can't pronounce it. But I think he gives a great product, and he does a great service, and he helps a lot of companies. And he's well known and respected throughout the industry, but it's because he educates, and he does so in such a great manner that it makes me want to go, hey, I know a guy you should talk to Alex. And that's kind of that he should be happy that he has a raving fan in me, because I'm doing exactly what, and I don't know if he did this by design or, you know, whatever, but too many nights drinking at the bar maybe with him, but you know, it's turned into, you know, what does that cost for me to go tell people about Alex? And now it's a warm referral. That's zero cost for him in marketing. He paid for me once, never has to pay again. So that's what you may want to think about how do you actually add that value. Video blogs may be it, or written blogs may be it, but I think there's a lot more to it if you really want to separate from the herd and differentiate yourself from the other people. Sure. I mean, am I off there, Alex? What do you think?
No, you're awesome. First of all, I appreciate the vote of confidence. Thank you, Stephen. I think the same way of you. Unfortunately, I don't meet a lot of people who need property management in Houston, Texas. If I did, you know, I'd have one name to mention. But one thing, this is what I'm just listening to you guys. This is very interesting stuff, operational level stuff. Love it. Aren't you guys competing? I mean, technically, you're competing for the same clients.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, in a very, it's like well, I'll equate it to fishing, Alex. When you launch in a boat, are you competing against the other fishermen in the boat?
I see where you're going with this. The blue ocean, you know, you can never see another ship out there. It's all
no. I'm just saying. If you think of it from if you get on the lake and there's other fishermen there, are you like that MF? You know,
I do. I do. I don't know if I'm happy when they have a big catch. I would say I'm kind of fascinated, but I'm not happy. If I don't have the same one or bigger, I'm not happy. That's obviously.
Yeah, but essentially you're competing.
I get it. And so I wanted to sort of Dave, what is your, like, I think one thing I'm trying to understand for your particular software, and I think what Steve is talking about. Steve, are you talking about like workflows, or is a checklist and workflow two different things?
A workflow turns into a checklist. So you basically have to take your procedures, right? And you know, you have to flow them out into a process and procedure. Once you do that, then you have to streamline it, and you got to sit there and look at all of them. And that's what, you know, my buddy Errol Allen, that's what he did with us, and he's helping other management companies. But basically, you say, okay, what happens here? What happens here? What happens here? What happens here? Take all that, you put it out on a flow chart, right? Then you bring in all the parties that are involved, and you go, is this right? Is there any redundancy? Are there any things that you are doing that you shouldn't be doing, or vice versa? You'll find a lot of those going, I don't do that, never did that, didn't even know we did that. Then you say, okay, well, how does it work better for everyone? You bring in all the parties involved. This is how we did it. Bring in all the parties involved. You flow it out, you streamline it. You kind of go, okay, this is here, this is here, this is here. Now you have it. Next thing you do is you say, what can we outsource? What is low level, low enjoyment task that I can outsource that is not the best use of this person's time? You outsource that. Then you take a checklist and go, okay, every time there's an elbow, every time there's a handoff somewhere, that's when you got to say, okay, that's a point that we got to make sure is not missed. And you know, and look, perfect example, when we first did, when we first created ours, let's say, I think it was onboarding a new owner, just like Dave said. You know, onboarding a new owner is a big process. So Pete, being the engineer, he made that process 19 or 20 steps in the process. It was like 10 pages, right? I mean, it was literally, it was a lot of white noise. So I looked at this and I said, Pete, I said, when we fly an airplane, the most critical time when you fly an airplane is when you lose an engine on takeoff. When you lose an engine on takeoff, that is the most dangerous time to ever have anything happen in an airplane. I said, do you know how long that checklist is for us to take an engine, shut it down, secure it, get everything done, come back around and land? He said, no. I said, it's about 2.5 pages. That's it. It's about 10 steps. I said, you have onboarding a new person, 19 steps. I said, we need to get this down to 1 page or half a page. And to him, he was like, how do you do that? I'm like, we got to take out the things that are not important. Only the things that will kill us. Shutting down the wrong engine on takeoff will kill you, right? Not closing your desk drawer will not necessarily kill you. So it's that kind of mentality. So basically, but the only way you can do that is you have to create the things that will kill you in the process, to look at them. And then you got to create some manual. Like I was telling Dave earlier, you got to click on that button and say, okay, like in our checklist, we click on that link, it takes us to our manual we call it the expanded version of the manual that is all the written terminology of exactly what to do. And then if you still don't know how to do it, we have a video backing that up, and we have screenshots to back it up. So we have all of that integrated inside of our checklist that we use, but it's so that we could, you know, we want to be able to onboard a new staff member within 2 weeks and go onboard a new owner. And they go through the checklist. They don't know what does onboard a new owner mean? What does that mean? Enter into software. Well, we all know entering in software could be a 45-minute process, right? So instead of us having go into PropertyWare, click this button, do this, do that, it just says load profile in software. Check it's complete or not complete. If you don't know what that means, then you click on that, takes you to the manual, takes you to like a 5-page expanded version of exactly what to do and then a video backing that up. So that's how we do it, and that's how we're able to systemize and structure that. So to answer your question, it does start as a workflow, but it also, and then goes to offloading what is not important and what can I outsource, and then it goes to the checklist of what will kill you, and all of that needs to be done in a sequential order, and then it needs to be revisions. I mean, look, in the airline industry, we get revisions all the time of things that go, you know what, that worked before. It worked when we were at 300 airplanes, but now it's 700 airplanes. That doesn't work. When we were at 200 doors, this process was great. Now it's not working. And our jobs as owners and leaders of the company is to find those bottlenecks and those choke points quick as we can and fix them before it causes a backlog to the team.
Well, I'm sorry I asked the question, Steve. I my apologies. Like, I didn't mean to just bring you in to diminish you into this workflow terminology. No, this is great. Honestly, man, this is great. So I am just quite fascinated by the way you connect your experience in flying the commercial airliners to operating a property management company. That sounds pretty fantastic. But I can tell you what I know for sure is that there is no software solution out there that gives you the ability and the flexibility to do what you did. You have to custom dev it, right? I don't see, Dave, do you know anyone that solves that?
I certainly do not. No, I'm not familiar with anything.
Yeah. Yeah. So
we'll
you
watch
have
our space because we're coming out with one soon.
You are?
Maybe. We're looking at it.
Be careful what you wish for.
I know.
It's just one of those things, man. It's but that's a lot of great companies are born like that. Yeah, you solve your own pain. By the way, how'd you get started, Dave? What was it? You were talking to these other landlords doing the other project, and then you pivoted out to do this. This is what I was going to ask you. What is your background? Like, what is your background? And are you a technologist or are you a business guy?
Business. Yeah, I am not a dev guy. Some familiarity, but really just enough to talk a little shop.
And so what was your background like before this project and the current company? What were you involved in?
So I was an English and history major at the university level. So it shows you can really come from anywhere.
You can.
And I got started with the college business right out of the gates. I was brought onto that team right when I graduated, worked on that for 3 or 4 years. And then pivoted onto onto Innago after that. So really kind of trial by fire, jumped right into it, and have learned a lot as I've gone along.
How many employees do you have?
So we are up to, we just hired, so we are now up to about 13 now, I think.
That's pretty good. That's very, very good. Are you making money, or are you still burning funds of some sort?
We're still burning a little bit, but we're on the path, so.
All right. So when do you have your break even? Like when do you think you'll get there, or profitability of some sort?
It really depends. I mean, it's one of those things. Of course, we have all sorts of charts and Excel sheets and pro formas built out, but it seems that you get a month into them and you kind of toss them, right? Yeah. Especially at this stage. So we have a break even set towards the end of next year, but I would imagine that we will put more money into the company, that we will seek additional investment, that, there's a lot of things that we'll do if we see the right kind of KPIs and right, if the company's headed in the right direction. So break even could be end of next year, could be further off.
Okay, let me ask you this. Have you, real quick, I got a quick question on that. What do you do when you have your forecast, you have your budget? Because look, we're just like you, growing company. We have our forecast. We've got it all nice and pretty with the colors and all that stuff. And all of a sudden you don't hit it. Yeah. And you're like, so how do you handle that, and how do you disseminate that information to your team? Because you're the leader, right? They're all looking at you going, Dave, what do we do? Right? So how do you do that when you don't hit your numbers, and how do you redirect and get everyone to keep people pushing along?
Yeah, I think you want to find, it sounds a little trite, but find a silver lining, of course. What are the good metrics that we've hit? What are the good signs that we're seeing? For us, we've seen a huge number in customers, a huge increase in customers. Our customer growth has far exceeded our expectations. Our onboarding has been a little slower than our expectations, right? So we focus on, in the initial part of the conversation, here's what we've done really, really well. Here's what we failed to do successfully. And how do we bridge this gap? How do we put these two on a level playing field and make sure that we are converting everybody from start to finish once they jump into Innago. So yeah, I think you kind of try to find something to hang your hat on and something to get excited about, and use that to fuel the desire to push something else forward.
Interesting. I just listened to Hard Things About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. Actually, I re-listened to it. Have you listened to that book, Dave?
I'm not familiar with that one.
I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Steve, you as well. It's called The Hard Thing About the Hard Things. And he's talking about his experience running a couple of Silicon Valley companies during the .com, .bomb, whatever crash. It's just very illuminating in terms of management, leadership, as well as kind of handling your between the investors and board of directors to employees to partners to competitors. Really well put together book. He actually gives the opposite advice. He says one of the problems that business owners, entrepreneurs get into, and why a lot of companies fail, is exactly what you just said. Basically, we ignore the sign, and I'm guilty as Fudge myself. Okay, we ignore the troubling signs, trying to dress up the actual shortfall with the opportunity, right? Hey man, we 32, well, so let's call it 25% of our customers canceled this month. Well, but new sales more than made up for it. Well, if I knew back then, it took the time to understand what happened, is there a competing product? Like, let's actually dig in and understand it all together. Sure. And so what it does, it actually, you're not a yay kind of man. There's a bit of confidence in your ability to lead the team and make sure that they stick around. They don't start looking for a job as soon as you announce something bad. But we also have to be honest as leaders, and we have to allow our team to be honest with us. So in other words, if you are constantly suppressing negative news and worrying kind of conversations, what you're doing is you are putting yourself, a rosy glasses, and this is how CEOs fail their companies. And that's what Ben Horowitz says. I connect with 100%. I recognize my own mistake. I've realized within the last 7 years running this business, there were multiple worrying signs that I window dressed. And because we don't want to feel negative, we sort of, as human beings, we want to push ourselves away from negativity as much as possible and reinforce the confidence in our team. Because I think every management book and every management course will teach you, be positive, lead your team with positivity. There's that, but there's that other aspect that I'm learning.
Alex, it's interesting. A couple of things you said. Before I forget, because I will. I've always heard, and I haven't always heard, but I've heard by several leaders, there's a lot of books on being good managers. There's not a lot of books on being a good leader. And being a good leader is actually telling your team when they're doing wrong or doing bad or they're failing, right? I mean, a good football coach, a good coach will take the best player and bench them if they are not doing right. That's a leader, right? If they're not doing good, they will tell them, sit down, you're not playing good. And maybe they'll get them to become a good leader. And my understanding, and I'm by no means an expert in any of this, but when you look at what a lot of this information is telling you, I think what the book that you just talked about, Alex, that talks so much more about being a leader, about having those no shit, hard conversations of saying, look, we are messing up. We need to fix this. And a lot of them are managers. You're managing. You're trying to manage expectations. You're managing but I think we're also masking and putting illusions on the fact that we are screwing up, because we can put nice sayings and nice things. And like Dave said, we kind of put a silver lining on it. And I think we all do that. I think we're all guilty of that because we're entrepreneurs. Nobody wants to admit that we failed, right? And it's really hard to say, we are failing. I failed in this process. So it's one of those things that I think it's hard to do, but I think that's the difference between a manager and a leader. I don't know what the true definition is of those two, but look, when you fail and your team fails, do you hold them accountable? Do you actually call them and say, which I think KPIs do that. Look, we all know KPIs are good. Dave, I don't know if you use them. That traction. like I told you about, Alex, doing that leadership meeting every Tuesday. We have a company scorecard, and on that scorecard, there's
we're super deep. Sorry to interrupt. We're super deep in the EOS implementation, man. I think we're about 70% through. Anyway, thanks to you in a lot of ways for recommending that path.
Yeah, and that, you know, that kind of, you know, doing that company scorecard every week, I think that helps you look at the health of the company. And and what you're doing by doing it every week, and I think that maybe, you know, Dave, I don't know if you're doing this, but it's a great book called Traction, and we run our company that way. Basically, you're looking at things proactively as opposed to looking a month behind going, oh shit, we lost money last month. What went wrong? Where are we at? As opposed to every week saying, okay, what are our goals and our metrics for the week? And, you know, if it's red or green, if it's red and it's red 2 weeks in a row, we've got a problem barreling down on us. And it's time to, you know, you're doing it with the leadership team that's got that no shit, you know, we're going to have these hard conversations or you're not going to be in this room as a leader. And those are the tough conversations to have. But that's the difference between a management team and a leadership team, I think.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. I think it is important to, hopefully I didn't, you know, the silver lining is there to, I guess, to boost, but perhaps I should even rethink that. I think one of the things that that happens before any of these conversations occur is, that helps us at least, is you need to provide the employees, the team members, a lot of autonomy and ownership over both the product and the problem, right? So that it's pretty darn clear to them when we say, hey, we're not hitting this number, what's going on? And of course we facilitate that and we facilitate that conversation, but the key there is that we're facilitating it rather than driving it, right? We are there to help guide, but they are there to actually build the product and make it into a great company. I've heard you guys talk before on your podcast about, you know, you haven't built a great company if you take yourself out and suddenly it falls apart, right? If it crumbles, you've just achieved something individually. But once you can take yourself out, once you can extricate yourself from the business as a whole, and it can still grow and thrive and build itself, that's when you know you've got something strong. And I think that starts with that autonomy and that ownership, and it, you know, trickles down into every other piece, including taking on big challenges and taking on issues when they do occur.
I think it actually goes back to, and I'll take it back one step further.
Okay.
I think it's more of the culture and the core values of the company.
Sure.
And I think it's a matter of instilling that. And whatever your core values are and your culture is, and, you know, not just having it, you know, on a piece of paper in a filing cabinet, but actually, you know, what some of the things we do. Pete, you know, my business partner, he's great at instilling that core value in the cultures. I mean, we have it up on posters in our office. You know, every week he sends out a weekly email honoring people who have exemplified the core values and what core value they showed to whether it's to help a client, help a team member, whatever. And it's in this internal email that goes out every Monday. And every Monday he's saying, so-and-so did the O in our core values. So-and-so did this. And it really, you could tell. And then they get a lot of kudos from the other team members.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, we all know that people are not driven by money. No one is driven by money. They're driven by the sense of doing good, and they want to belong, and they want to feel like they're building something. Otherwise they wouldn't work for startup companies like ours.
Right.
So I totally agree with what you're saying, but I think it goes a step back further of making sure you have the right person on the right seat of the bus. They believe in the company, they believe in the brand, and they believe in the core values, and they live the core values. I mean, we have fired people for not being part of our core values, people that are good performers. We have done that, and that's not a, you know, everyone says, yeah, you should do it. It's tough when you're actually having to do that. Yeah. And you're going, man, am I like living through a book, or is it, because this is reality, right? We got bills to pay. We got stuff going on, you know, we're in like this, you know, 5,000 little things spinning around constantly. We're going, am I just throwing a monkey wrench into this over what a book says I should do? But I will say that if you live it, like Alex is full into that EOS and the operating, if you do that, I think you're setting the culture correct, that, you know, the person that is not sticks out like a sore thumb, and it is very evident if they are not living the core values of your company. And that's when you make that decision of saying, you know what, we're gonna have to make a decision here. And so so I'm agreeing with you. I just think you may want to take it a step back further and make sure that you really exemplify what your core values are, what your culture is. I mean, every monthly meeting that we do, Pete actually asks, you know, ours is an acronym. And Pete will ask each employee, can someone tell me what the D is in our core values? He does it every monthly meeting. So they know it. And it's kind of cool because now what we have seen is we have stuff that's going on in our company that Pete and I are not even involved in. We have team meetings, having team meetings. They're fixing problems. Pete and I are not even involved. So to us, that's showing that we're working in synergy. And synergy is when it's operating on its own. Now we can step back. We can look at things as business owners and go, okay, what do we want to do next? Do we want to sell our checklist? Do we want to, do more outsourcing for other companies? Do we want to do things like that because we're not in the weeds anymore because it's operating on its own and we can tweak it and fine tune it. But one thing I've noticed, and Alex, I don't know if you're at this point yet, but me of all people, I'm actually the one stepping back, looking at things saying, okay, what is the one thing that we can focus on as opposed to me, who's a guy that says yes to everything because I was in the heat of battle trying to get so many things done. I'm kind of stepping back out of it now going, okay, well, let's just focus on getting this done. And I can actually give an objectionable thing because I'm not the one doing all the work now. And so we're seeing that this traction and core values is all kind of coming together. It took us a year. We've been doing it for a full year now, and we're starting to see the reaping some of the rewards of it. So it does work, but you have to, man, it's tough. I mean, you have to diligently dig into it, and everyone has to buy in. If not, they have to go. I mean, that's a sad fact.
That's the most challenging thing that Andy Moore, by the way, we got it. This is 1 minute. I'm going to do a wrap if you guys don't mind. Andy Moore told me he's the certified implementer for the EOS and a very, very good property management entrepreneur. And he said, Alex, you may have team departures. Be prepared that people will leave. And I think we have the best team in the world. And I am honestly, I was terrified. I was terrified people will leave because I love my team. I mean, we've built this thing together, right? We've grown this thing together. We keep growing this. But as it turns out, other people, some people will find other opportunities that are better suited to them once we shine the light on everything that's going on.
And that's okay.
The most challenging part. Yeah, it's been the most challenging part but I also understand as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, everybody else is my concern. I can't just be concerned with one or two individuals and their path. I got to let them go and be who they are while caring about for the rest of the people. This is very challenging and that's one of the things I turned back to that book by Ben Horowitz is to sort of to justify the self, to quiet the doubts.
Are you doing the right thing?
Yeah.
I get it.
Anyway, I just wanted to say, Dave, it's an immense pleasure. I mean, we just kind of scratched the surface on these things. It's just like we can just get on a plane for 14 hours and do it justice, but we're not going anywhere. So perhaps we can have you as a guest to come back to us in a couple of weeks. Where I do wish you all the best. You seem like a very talented and driven guy, and I'm glad that I've met you. And Steve, thank you for your time. Dave, any last parting words of wisdom, any kind of advice you can give to our listeners to get their jobs better, to help them run their businesses better?
I would say, stay driven, stay focused, but don't forget work-life balance, and don't forget that your employees also have a work-life balance. So make sure that they're happy and healthy, and everything will move forward from there.
Very wise. Very wise. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure. Until next time, thank you for listening.
Thanks,
and watching.
Hey, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.